The flashback of Elbaf just started, and all of it happened 14 years ago. And 14 years ago, it started with Loki and Yarrow being summoned to the castle, summoned by King Harold. So they get summoned, and from the very beginning of the flashback, they are talking about, oh, why did they get summoned? And Loki is trying to push the stick on Yarrow, saying that, yeah, no, I actually got summoned because this is actually my home. Why did you actually get summoned? And from there, Loki is pretty confident in his powers, pretty confident in everything, in his personality, and in everything. And as they're walking, they are actually talking about the latest news about whatever's going on. And what's going on is that Loki knows that his father is a dog of the world government. And what does that mean? Because that means a lot. The fact that Loki knows about his dad, that means that his King Harold is not trying to hide his intentions towards anything that he's trying to do. What he's trying to do, of course, what I'm probably guessing is that he got the word from Big Mom's mom, and she was the one who told him to King Harold about the world and about how it's better to actually be trading other than be training for to be a warrior or something like that. That whole morality of actually trying to do peace, I understand it and it's a good perspective. But to the facts of totally annihilating the spirits of Elbaf, that's totally what you could see in a way, even with King Harold's politics in a way. So that's why with King Harold trying to be a friendly friend with the world government and trying to be one of their underlings, meaning that anytime he would get called, he would show up with a bunch of giants so that they can fight for the world government and all of that. So Loki is totally against it from what he says. And in here he says, I wonder what he wants. It's hard to care about the whims of a government dog. And from there, Yarrow is saying, we're in this mess because you keep spouting that kind of nonsense. Now we've got a whole generation of peace-addled brats who can't even hold a weapon. Basically, the whole spirit of being a warrior of Elbaf is almost gone from the new generation that's coming up nowadays. So in that flashback, what we can already see is that already 14 years ago, they were talking about some pretty serious stuff. And nowadays, we can clearly see the kids, instead of, grabbing something to fight with or whatever, they are actually going to the school, going to the library, getting interested in more history and all of that. So at least they're getting some knowledge in. But getting some knowledge in to replace something else, that's like going against your own nature in a way, And in here, right after that, he just says, that's just a sign of the times. It's nice to know that my great-great-grandchildren won't see combat, they want peace. He's talking about Rania. And Rania, we just literally saw in one of the latest chapters that Rania was literally about to die. She was this close because Kunko was about to send her off, So by him saying that, I don't think that by doing that, it is actually leading to peace, because it might be leading to more than peace. It's leading to actual war. And from there, we get the scene of Loki that's actually going towards the door that's supposed to lead into the space where the king is with his guards and all of that, It's the place where the King Yarrow receives people in a way. And right as Loki basically sees another giant in front of the door and he smashes him, they get absolutely shocked by what they saw inside of that chamber. Basically what they saw was pretty terrible. And they saw King Harold in the middle, all the way like this, and he's basically all dark, getting transformed into a demon, basically. That's what I'm guessing. And at the same time, we can see all of his royal guards around him, and they are stabbing him, basically. So what happened in this situation to get to this result? I'm probably guessing that he had some powers in him, some demonic powers from him, And from those powers, they didn't awaken until Im wanted it to, and when it awakened, that's when we get this scene, and from here he's probably the one, just like we saw in the new chapters how giants get transformed. So basically he's the one who actually started to transform all of the giants in the royal palace, for example. And from here Jarl is like, what is this, what is going on? And even Loki is like, what the hell are you guys doing? What is this shit? And so basically we understand just from this that there's a lot of demonic stuff that happened, and the story is not just about, oh yeah, it's Loki that killed his father. Maybe the story has a lot more to hide than we already know. Into the same timeline, but to another story, because now we are also talking about Skopper Gaban and Shanks taking a bath. And they're basically both in a spa in Gaban's house. And in that spa, first clue, we see Shanks literally just like this, and he got both of his arms. And he's like this, and we can see him from the back. And from the back, we can see that Shanks basically right here has something. He has a sign right here. And that sign lets us remember very easily that sign might have been one of the signs that the God's Knights that showed up in Elbaf, Gunko, Summers, they had that same sign on their arm or somewhere on their body or something. And we're saying that sign is the sign that you can access the abyss. And if you have that sign, you are a God's Knight. So does it mean that Shanks was a God's Knight back then? We don't know. Maybe. But from perspective, we don't know what Shanks did right after Goldie Roger died. In between that time and in between when he met Luffy, we don't pretty much know what he was up to and what he was doing, or when he met his crew and all of that. And there's been at least 20 years or something like that in between. So in that time, what I'm probably guessing is that Shanks wanted to see where he actually came from, and he went back to Marijua because he already knew. And when he went back and he met Garling and his brother Shamrock, he stayed with them, and maybe he trained with them, and he became a God's Knight, and he became a part of the family and all of that. But a few years later, he was maybe truly, absolutely disgusted with how everything was. And he was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going back down. And that's where he went back down. He fought who's who. He got the gum gum fruit. And that's where Luffy ate the gum gum fruit right after that, So maybe that's my theory of what happened, because at the end, chapter 1, episode 1 of One Piece, Shanks gets his hand literally chopped by a sea monster that he's totally capable to literally obliterate. So don't tell me that, Shanks was just trying to protect Luffy by, he's gonna get my hand and that's it. I totally believe he got his hand chopped because he wanted to cut all of his ties with the world government and Im-sama and all of that. And that's the way he found how to do it, And the second clue we got here from Shanks is that he remembers he saw King Harold on Marijua. And when he saw him, he's like, what the hell? He's not supposed to be here. He's a giant, and the giants are not affiliated towards the world government, so he shouldn't be here. But by the fact that he was there, it tells you that, yes, he was one of the dogs of the world government, and Shanks wanted to actually speak to him before, time comes up, because probably Shanks knew something, and we're probably going to get more story into the flashback of Elbaf, more into the next chapters as well. And from here we also get the scene of an absolute outburst of Conqueror's haki, and it says that day the massacre at the castle took place. Elbaf's most beloved king, Harold the Benevolent, lost his life, and at the same time you can clearly see an outburst of haki everywhere. People getting slashed, Jarl getting, stabbed in the head with that sword. And then we also get a scene of a treasure that's probably hiding the devil fruit, and we see somebody right in front of it trying to steal it. And from perspective, it could be option A, Loki, option B, a God's Knight, option C, somebody else we don't know. And in the same flashback, now we jump into another flashback. And now this one is 109 years ago. And 109 years ago, we get to see King Harold in the very beginning of his reign when he was literally 45 years old. And at that time, what everybody used to say about him is that he was one of the most despicable being ever. And at the same time, we also understand that at the time, the most hated or the most strongest crew ever on the seas were the giants. Because everybody was afraid of the giants before Rocky Chebek and the Goldie Roger pirates and all of that. So before all of that, it was the giants.
We continue the flashback now into the newest chapter with Dorian Broggy that are actually the childhood friends of King Harold at the same time, because we can see that they were all friends when they were kids, you know? And so from there, they all kind of grew up into the same kind of mentality where we are bigger than everybody, we can do everything and all of that. So just by their size, they can pretty much bully everybody. And they started on going on adventures, the giant pirates and all of that. And we all knew that they savaged everything and they were basically destroying everybody. And they were the biggest threat on the seas at that point in time. And as Harold grew older and all of that, and he started going on adventures, and he went to a kingdom called the Bannet Kingdom. And in that kingdom, he saw a whole situation going on where a giant woman was actually imprisoned, and she was made into a whole show where people paid money so that they can go and see what the giant woman looked like. And so from that perspective, King Harold was pissed, and he decided to attack that kingdom and free that woman. But as that woman got freed and she is on the ship with King Harold, she literally takes her hand and brings it very closely to King Harold's face and, you know, and basically that for King Harold was literally the slap of the century, because as soon as he got slapped, his face literally looked like he never got slapped in his whole life. Even his own mother never slapped him like that, for example. And the fact that a giant woman out of nowhere actually did that to him surprised him literally to the extreme, because you can't say that he was hurt from it physically, but symbolically it meant a lot. And Ida was actually the one who brought King Harold back to reality, telling him, hey, it's not because you were born bigger than everybody else that you can actually go easily and bully everybody, you know? It's not right from you. And she literally, by saying that, started making King Harold think, yeah, actually, I don't think that's actually the right move, you know? So from there, they went back to the kingdom that they just destroyed, and they said sorry to the king over there. And by saying sorry, they also told them, hey, we're gonna be helping you out with the whole reconstruction of the kingdom. And that's what they did. And after that, they started going on adventures actually together, Ida and King Harold, with of course his crew and all of that. So going on adventures left and right. And that's where we also discover what the blood-soaked serpent is, because from what appeared to be, King Harold asks her the question, so you crossed the blood-soaked serpent and all of that? And she's like, you mean the red line? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, yeah, I did it, but now I can't come back, you know? So now we also confirm that blood-soaked serpent that even Dorian Broggy were talking about way back in the day is actually the red line. So in just that, we have the confirmation that the red line is literally the thing that no giant can destroy. And as they go back again on a couple more adventures here and there, at the end, they go back to Elbaf. And that's where, you know, King Harold has to be cautious, but at the same time, he wants to open up his country towards the world. He wants to open up free trade, and he wants his people to stop being so bullying towards the world in a way. Like, you know, just because you're bigger than everybody doesn't mean you should start bullying everybody left and right, you know? And from there, a lot of people agreed and a lot of people disagreed. Just like the two oldest giants that we have in Elbaf, and at that point in time, they were still both alive before Big Mom, of course, did some shit. And he started on traveling more. He started on going places. He started on discovering people. And from there, we have one very big event happening. But at the same time, that event comes with a consequence in a way, because that event is the birth of Hajruddin, and we discover that Ida is Hajruddin's mom. But from the birth of their son, we can also see that they are both not very accepted in Elbaf into the bloodline, in a way, into the royal family, because the royal family, they are all pure-blooded giants, you know, with horns and all of that, and they all want to keep the pure bloodline. They don't want another giant to come and disrupt the bloodline in a way. And so in that case, they separate, and he leaves her in one of the safest villages in Elbaf. And so that's why I'm probably guessing that maybe she is the only mother that's still alive in the whole One Piece world, or at least from a character that we know, you know. And now we get introduced to the next wife that King Harold is going to be having, and she is called Estrid. And Estrid she is a pure-blooded giant, and she is the daughter of a very powerful man in Elbaf and in the family or whatever. And she's basically accepted by all of the pure-blooded royal family, you know. But still, we also see that Estrid has a very dark side, and that dark side is the fact that she is actually a gold digger, because as soon as she pulls up to the castle, she's like, yeah, bring all the diamonds, the jewels, and all of that to my chamber. And then she's like, yeah, and next time we're gonna be eating, we always want to eat in several plates. I'm telling you, gold digger. So at the same time, we're still in Elbaf. King Harold is still going on expeditions around the world, trying to make connections with other countries and all of that, trying to be a diplomat, trying to exchange goods and stuff like that. And Estrid is still in the castle, and Ida is still in the village with Hajruddin. And 63 years ago, we have the birth of Loki. And Estrid is the mom of Loki. And as he is born into life, Estrid saw his face, and as soon as Loki opens up his eyes and she sees his eyes, literally she got one of the biggest postpartum depression that we know in anime history, literally, because from the moment he opened up his eyes and he tried to reach for her, literally she threw him away, and she did not accept him as her kid in a way, which is totally depressing. And she doesn't accept him to the point where she wanted to actually get rid of him. So she took him out of where he was, and she threw him away from the castle where she was. And she threw him to the world of the dead, into literally the deep end of Elbaf, where if you make that fall, you're not supposed to survive. But guess what happened? Loki survived. And as he survived, boop, 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 he started on climbing again the tree, going back to where he came from, you know. He's a baby, he doesn't know what's going on. But the fact that he survived tells you about his strength already. And as Estrid hears that Loki is climbing back into the castle or whatever, she falls ill. She's like, yeah, I can't do this anymore. And poof, right before she dies, she's like, yes, if anything bad happens to the country right now, it's gonna be Loki, and it's always gonna be Loki. And King Harold one day is gonna die by the hands of his own son, Loki. So from that perspective, literally she threw out a premonition that literally she took out of her ass or whatever, because on what ground does she speak on saying that he's the one who's gonna bring, you know, all the misery and all that to Elbaf, like just because she didn't like the way his eyes looked, you know, which is kind of absurd and weird. But this is where we are into the flashback of Elbaf, and from everything we saw until now, we just saw that there's a lot of misery going on, and hopefully in the next chapters we get more information about this, and I'll be here to let you know about all of it. And on that note, guys, don't forget, like this video and subscribe to the channel. It's very important. All of you guys watching this video, go subscribe right now. And don't forget, comment down below what you think of the whole flashback of the Giants, you know, in a way. See ya.